Hey, what's up, guys? You're now listening to Devo with Uncle Theo. Today is day 127, and we're going to cover 2 Kings chapters 16 and 17. Last time we left off, we were just going through rapid succession, all of the different kings in both the north and the south. And we saw a little of how the northern kingdom would go into captivity in 722 BC. And we're going to get a greater glimpse of that today. And last time we covered Amaziah, Azariah, Jotham, and today we're going to pick up with Ahaz. So let's read verse 1. In the 17th year of Pekah, Ahaz, the son of Jotham, king of Judah, became king. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord his God, as his father David had done. But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, even made his son pass through fire, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord had driven out from before the sons of Israel. So he committed the wicked practice of sacrificing his own son, and this would be to the god Molech. And verse 4 says he also sacrificed and burned incense on the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. So we see Ahaz is bad. He's really bad. You continue to see his story. In verse 7, he sends messengers to the king of Assyria. And he says, I am your servant and your son. Come up and deliver me from the hands of the king of Aram and from the hand of the king of Israel, who are rising up against me. And so remember this, anytime there's a potential sandwich being taken place, the kings are going to make treaties with other nations to avoid the sandwich and to try to get help to team up against other nations to be able to attack better. And obviously, the thing that appeals to most kings is wealth. And so guess what Ahaz does? He goes in the temple and brings out the silver and gold from it. That's verse 8. Ahaz took the silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house and sent a present to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria listened to him, and the king of Assyria went up against Damascus and captured it and carried the people of it away into exile to Kir and put Rezin to death. And you just continue to see the wickedness of Ahaz piled up. We're not done. In verses 10 through 18, he goes to Damascus to meet the king of Assyria who helped him. And while he's there, he sees the altar of the king there. And he gives word back to his priest, Urijah, and says, look, I want our altar to be modeled after this pattern, to all of this workmanship as well. And so Urijah builds this altar for him and has it ready when they come back. And they sacrifice burnt offerings, meal offerings, drink offerings, and peace offerings on this altar. And you just see the wickedness there. They trade out the altar of God for something that just looks better in another nation. And that wraps up the summary of Ahaz's life. And even in verse 17 and 18, he makes more changes to the temple at Jerusalem. He removes the borders, the laver from the stands. He removes the reservoir from the bronze oxen. You remember that was installed during Solomon's time. And we just see that this is a very wicked king. And that moves us to his son, which this name most of you may be familiar with. His son name is Hezekiah. And that's how chapter 16 ends. It says, his son Hezekiah reigned in his place. And you may be tired of me doing this, but I think it's a healthy practice for us to understand how Israel has become a great nation. And not only that, how that nation has divided. So I'm going to keep naming these kings just as the mother of all learning. So remember, after the split, there are going to be 20 kings in the southern region, which is Judah, and there are going to be 20 kings in the northern region. And the split is from Solomon's sin. His son gets the southern territory, and one of his servants gets the northern territory. Remember, they split over Rehoboam not taking the counsel from the elders, but taking his peer group's counsel on how to handle the taxes that his father put in place. And so in Judah, we got to get the Hezekiah, and we've covered a lot of these, and it's been so far Rehoboam, Abijah, Asa, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Ahaziah, Athaliah, Joash, Amaziah, Azariah, Jotham, and today we covered Ahaz and Hezekiah. We don't have many more kings in the southern kingdom before even they go into captivity. They go into captivity in 586 BC. That's the official date, but really it takes place in three waves. And those three waves are 605 BC, 597 BC, and 586 BC. And we'll talk about that more and more because that's going to bring our prophets into play, because Daniel is going to get taken in that first wave. Then Ezekiel is going to be taken in that second wave. And then the rest of the people are going to be taken in that third wave. And we'll talk about why a little later. So that's our southern kingdom. We're working our way down. And I'll keep repeating this even as we go into Chronicles. And the goal is maybe you'll have half of the kings memorized. So when you're studying them on your own, you'll just have to fill in those other halves. The goal is to memorize these lists. And you may forget them, but you'll never forget the familiarity you had with the names. And so in the northern kingdom, we had the split, and it started with Jeroboam, Nadab, Baasha, Elah, Zimri, Tibni, Omri, Ahab, Ahaziah, Joram, Jehu, Jehoaz, Jehoash, Jeroboam II, Zechariah, Shalom, Manaam, Pekahiah, Pekah, and Hoshea. And Hoshea is the one in 722 where Israel goes into captivity. And that's where we pick up. We're going to shift right back over to the northern kingdom. And so let's read about that. Chapter 17, verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, the son of Elah, became king over Israel and Samaria. And he reigned 9 years. He did evil in the sight of the Lord, not only as the kings of Israel who were before him. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hoshea became his servant and paid him tribute. But the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, who had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and had offered no tribute to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. So the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. And here it is. Then the king of Assyria invaded the whole land and went up to Samaria, besieged it 3 years. Now remember what besieging is. It's a military tactic to starve out your opponent until they surrender. And so that's what they're doing in Samaria. Remember, Samaria is the capital of Israel. And just like Jerusalem is the capital of Judah, the southern kingdom. It says, in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria and carried Israel away into exile to Assyria. Now there you have it. The northern nation is in exile. God, because of their disobedience, allows Israel to finally go into exile. You saw their instability over and over. This king didn't do what was right in the eyes of the Lord. This king did worse than any other king before him. This king didn't do what was right in the eyes of the Lord. You will hear that over and over. And God just finally said enough. He allows Assyria to take them into captivity. And you see the reason why here. It says in verse 7, now this came about because the sons of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up from the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and that they had feared other gods and walked in the customs of the nations, whom the Lord had driven out before the sons of Israel, in the customs of the kings of Israel, which they had introduced. The sons of Israel did things secretly, which were not right against their Lord their God. Moreover, they built for themselves high places in all their towns, from watchtower to fortified city. They set for themselves sacred pillars and ashram on every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burned incense on all the high places, as the nations did, which the Lord had carried away to exile before them. And they did evil things, provoking the Lord. They served idols, concerning which the Lord had said to them, you shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord warned Israel and Judah through all his prophets. You hear that? All his prophets and every seer, saying, turn from your evil way and keep my commandments, my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you through my servants the prophet. However, they did not listen, but stiffened their necks like their fathers, who did not believe in the Lord their God. They rejected his statutes and his covenant, which he made with their fathers, and his warnings with which he warned them. And they followed vanity and became vain, and went after the nations which surrounded them, concerning which the Lord had commanded them not to do like them. They forsook all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made for themselves molten images and 2 calves, and made an Asherah, and worshipped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. Then they made their sons and daughters pass through the fire, and practiced divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him. So the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them from his sight. None was left except the tribe of Judah. But listen to this. Also, Judah did not keep the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the customs which Israel had introduced. The Lord rejected all the descendants of Israel, and afflicted them, and gave them into the hand of plunderers, until he had cast them out of his sight. When he had torn Israel from the house of David. So there you have it. That's why they went into exile, because they did not follow the Lord fully. And this should bring us much soberness, but much encouragement as well. We will never face this type of judgment, because Christ followed the Lord fully, and we can enter heaven on his back and on his work, and we can argue to God that Christ's death paid not only for our sins, he kept the entire law fully, so we didn't have to, and we will never be banished from his presence. He will never put us in exile, because Christ was exiled for us in our stead, on our behalf. But here's the beauty. Let me show you how good God is. Even though he takes Assyria into captivity, look what Assyria tries to do. The king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and settled them in the cities of Samaria in place of the sons of Israel. Look at what God does. So they possessed Samaria and lived in its cities. At the beginning of their living there, they did not fear the Lord. Therefore, the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. So they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations whom you have carried away into exile in the cities of Samaria do not know the custom of the God of the land. And he has sent lions among them. And behold, they kill them, because they do not know the custom of the God of the land. And so God is killing these people because they're starting to conquer the promised land and occupy it. And we always say, God is like, hold up. Look, I'm teaching my people a lesson. Don't y'all get carried away. And so he just sends lions to attack people. So they try to bring priests who they took in exile to bring them to teach them about the customs of the land. And they teach them how to fear the Lord. But it says that every nation still makes her own God. And that's how our chapter ends. It says, to this day, they did according to the earlier customs. They did not fear the Lord, nor do they follow their statutes or their ordinances or the law or the commandments which the Lord commanded the sons of Jacob, whom he named Israel. And this was the statute. This is how our chapter ends. The statute and the ordinance of the law and the commandment which he wrote to you, you shall observe to do it forever, and you shall not fear other gods. The covenant that I made with you, you shall not forget, nor shall you fear other gods, but the Lord your God you shall fear, and he will deliver you from the hand of all your enemies. However, they did not listen, but they did according to their earlier custom. So while these nations feared the Lord, they also served their idols, their children likewise, and their grandchildren, and their fathers did. So they do to this day. And that is so sad. And such a warning to us that our decisions today not only affect our children, but they affect our grandchildren. And the fathers are emphasized here as well, because they bear the main responsibility as being the leaders of the home. And I want you to know the serious responsibility that you have. No matter your age or no matter where you are, you can still make a difference or make up the difference, or trust in God to help you make up the difference. But your decision right now have a multi-generational impact. They affect not just you, but your children and your grandchildren. Choose wisely, and you have all the material you need to make a wise decision from this full counsel of God, these 66 books. Treasure them so that you may behold his glory and treasure Christ above all. You guys take care. Catch you next time.
Hey.